Assalamu alaikum. We're going to go ahead and get started now, and inshallah, if others can join us, they can get caught up by listening to the recording, or if they're not able to join us, inshallah, they can access the recording in full later. Um, just as a reminder, your video and your microphone are both turned off, but there is a portion later on where you're able to participate. Please do unmute yourself and speak during that time, or use the chat box to participate and share your thoughts. Welcome to our third session of the Marriage Workshop, sponsored by ABSA. As you'll remember from our previous sessions, ABSA was an organization that was founded 2 years ago with the objective of connecting followers of Ahlul-Bayt, especially from student organizations across North America and the world, in order to benefit from our collective and pooled efforts. Inshallah, if you want more information about the organization, you can go to absanetwork.com. Today, we're again joined by Dr. Kianpour. I'll shorten his bio this time so we can spend more time in his session, but he has his master's degree in clinical psychology and family therapy, as well as his PhD in human development, marriage, and family therapy. He now lives in Canada, where he has established his own clinical practice. Dr. Kianpour has a great amount of experience in counseling individuals, couples, and families in Iran, the United States, and Canada. Inshallah, he'll get us started with recitation of Quran and then our topic for today.
Thank you so much, Sister Sarah. I will recite some verses of Quran from Surah Al-Yusuf. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام را تلك آيات الكتاب المبين إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين وكذلك يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الأحاديث ويتم نعمته عليك وعلى آل يعقوب كما أتمها على أبويك من قبل إبراهيم وإسحاق إن ربك عليم حكيم لقد كان في يوسف وإخوته آيات للسائلين صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Hope that everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Today we are going to talk about proposal. For the last 2 sessions, we talk about self-identification and reviewed all those practical ways that we can identify some of the characteristics or qualities that we have. Because we believe that if we know ourselves better, it's a strength of ourselves to get to know other people also, and to inshallah experience a better lasting marriage, inshallah. And on the second session, we reviewed like our topic was measures, and we just try to see on the areas of focus and in which areas we can focus to get to know the another person that we are just trying to get to know, and inshallah being to be like a future spouse, our future spouse. And for this session, we are talking about gonna talk about proposal. By proposal, I mean not like that the definition that we have here in the Western culture, when after a couple of years of dating, men usually go and give proposal to a woman by knee in front of the woman and just like propose, or having like a ring to give to the he's like a partner or whatever that you call it. So by proposal, I mean the time that you started to get to know someone, and this process that may take like for a couple of months, for some for a few weeks, even for some for a few days, some few weeks and all, or a few months. So, and it's a time that you're just trying to get to know that person by asking several questions or whatever that helps you to get to know another person, and also he or she try to get to know yourself too. So this is the definition of proposal, or what we call it in Farsi khastagari, or anyone who's familiar with that word. We are going to talk about khastagari or proposal. So for today, our topic is methods of proposal, how you can approach someone, um, the questions that you can ask during this period of time, and expectation regulation. By expectation regulation, I mean, for example, you cannot find someone who's matched with your expectation. How you can regulate your expectation? How you can be, flexible, or revise some of your expectation to get matched to the person that you are trying to get to know. And engagement, like after all this, you choose the one that you want, some the your future spouse, and then you probably have some like a nikah, or uh, like having for some people, before they get having like a permanent nikah or marriage, they do temporary one, and during that time just try to get to know themselves better, and it's the time that you officially type of like engage, and then you make your final decision for the permanent marriage. So I just wanted to be in the same boat, like with all of you, that having a clear idea about the concept or the topics that we are going to talk, inshallah. uh, So in terms of methods, we have like lots of methods, or like the approach that we can take toward the marriage and to get to know someone. But probably in general, they are categorized in probably three categories or topics, like direct. For example, you know someone at university, in the community, or wherever that you work, for example, and you just directly go to that person and ask that person if it's appropriate to talk about marriage. And like, you talk about your intention, and you ask her that, for example, I want to if talk about marriage, and if we can like set a time or whatever that we can, like if you let your family know and I will let my family know, and we can just arrange a situation at a time that we talk about this issue. This is what I call it, like direct method, that you directly go to that person and ask her to like having a meeting or something like that to talk about marriage. And the second one is family oriented, which, for example, your mom or your dad or someone in your family, like close one, like a sister, brother, or someone else, or even aunties, uh, introduce someone to you, and they contact the family of that person, and to see if they are also interested in this process, and you can arrange like the situation or arrange a time to see them talk about the possibility of a marriage. And the second one is an intermediary like approach, what I call it. So it is like, for example, you know someone, and but you don't prefer to go directly and ask that person, so you send someone, and that person might not be from your members of your family, but a friend or someone else that you think is a good person for that, and you share your emotions, your thoughts with that person, and that person directly goes to the one that you are interested in, talk about the possibility of any meeting or whatever that you uh, that you think, like, like a marriage or something. So these three approaches or these three ways are, I categorize them in these three topics, and but there might be some other ways you can think of, but probably the other ways might be like categorized in some ways in these three topics. Something that might happen, like a question might just bring up, is that how does age affect the method of approach? So probably those who are younger, like in 20s, 22, 23, 24, something like that, they might like prefer like type of family oriented approach, and ask their one of their family members, specifically mom, to go ahead and ask the family of the person that you are interested in, and start the process. And also, it is started usually from the male side, like from the man, not from the female, because it's a tradition, and it is appropriate that this process is initiated by men, not by women. And also, even in Western culture, it's usually initiated by men, not by women. Even those who are dating, you may know better than me. Those who are like those, I mean, who are raised and born and raised here, and more familiar with the Western culture. So after a couple of years of dating, it's a man who approach and give the proposal to the woman. Um, so they may choose the family-oriented approach, and is totally appropriate. And I guess probably the family-oriented is the best way of approaching someone that you are interested. But there are some situations that there might not be like that possibility of involving family in the first step. Like, for example, for those students who come from other countries to the United States or Canada or somewhere else, and doing like a master or PhD, and they at the same time, after a couple of years or a couple of months, they think that okay, so I'm ready to get married and I need to get someone. And in this situation, like, get involving the family from another country to talk with the family of someone else is kind of difficult. Probably a direct method might be a better option, or an intermediary, like um, kind of approach might be better. So, and the older the person, I guess, is, the more likely that person use a direct or intermediary approach. So, for example, but there are some cases that, regardless of their age, they usually like prefer family oriented. For example, I had someone here who's around 45 years, and has not married yet, and is looking for someone. And he was telling me that the one that I need to get to know, it should pass the filter of my mother's and my sister's filter. And where they live in Iran. So, and they are not here to get to know that person. So, and I think he kind of just stuck in a, in a like a level that is probably appropriate for someone in like 20s, not someone who's 45, because like someone is like 45 or even after 40 is kind of mature enough that they approach that person directly or intermediary at for the first step, and then after that he can go by himself without involving anyone else. So it depends on the situation. So, but I think the older the person is, it's more likely to go with the direct or intermediary approach, and the younger, the younger the person is, it's more likely to go through the family oriented way. So this is the way, and that I think age can affect the method of approach, but depends on the situation. It can be different, and I'm not saying that which one is appropriate or inappropriate. It's totally depends on the situation and the the personality also of the people who are involved. Um, so there are like matchmakers, for example. You ask a matchmaker, which is categorized also in the intermediary, like to introduce someone to you or your family, and then you get involved in the process and get connected to that person. So, and you probably like a website, like a matchmaking website, or those what we call it sometimes, like in a non-Islamic way, dating website or a matchmaking website in Islamic terminology. So you get a like I have create an account in a website, and based on the algorithm, the computer try to, based on the your priority or the qualities that you put in the website try to match you with someone else, and um, introduce like a couple of people to you. And I guess you have to pay for to have access to like advanced features of that website. Probably like creating an account is free, but getting to know and get connected to the people, you need to pay for that. It depends on the person and the personality or whatever that he thinks it is appropriate, like using the website. I'm not saying that it is not appropriate, but it depends on the people. But probably it's more likely that you get connected to someone who's not um, like the personalities or whatever, like the qualities or whatever that you are looking for match with your uh, expectations. So getting involved a matchmaker, a real matchmaker, or involving some other people who know you and also know the other person might be a better option. But this is the arena of technology, and using like a website or like an internet in general is a part of our life, and it can be used for several different various reasons, and one of them is for getting married with someone. So, and it's a kind of an option that you can think of, but uh, like personally I think that the first three options might be a better option than the website, like all those online matchmaking or whatever that you call it. And sometimes when the local community are too small, it's kind of make that process a little bit difficult because everyone know each other. And if the fact that you need to find someone inside that community, it really limit your options. So it's probably better to go beyond that community and consider some other communities even out of the town or even out of the state. So consider all the other states too. So if, for example, for the scenario that we had in the last two sessions, Amir lives in Wisconsin. So, and it's a really too small community. And also, I don't know what is the center of Wisconsin, but probably the Muslim community or Shia community of Wisconsin. It should be like a small community, and if he can like extend that option to other states like California, Houston, or New York, Washington D.C., he's going to have much more like options. Um, and also some people in local, like a small local community, just try to hide some of like what's like if they are like just looking for someone or getting to know someone, try to hide that from other people in the community, which makes that process a little bit difficult. And if someone realize that they are talking, or they are talking with someone, getting to know someone, or they do something um, without telling anybody, so when they get to know that, they might be like get upset. And that's kind of the hardship of this process within the small local communities. um, and going to one's original country for marriage and then coming back with this spouse is another option for those who have some connections or roots in their original countries, specifically for students who come to United States, and also for those second generations that have families in their original countries. For example, someone who's born and raised like a Lebanese or from Pakistan, who lives in the United States, is born and raised in the United States, but has lots of family in Pakistan or Lebanon or Iran. Still, there is that option that they can go back to their country, to their parents' country, and get to know someone there and get married and bring that person uh, to the United States. I see that a lot among the Afghans communities, specifically here in Canada. I see that even those who's born and raised here, sometimes they go back to Afghanistan, get married with someone, and bring him or her to the United States, to the Canada. So this is what I saw among the Afghan communities here. Um, but for some, it is kind of difficult to do that because they couldn't find like a similar characteristic, or they think that like getting to know someone in the original country cannot meet the expectations that they have, and there are lots of gap in terms of the way that they think, their beliefs, or like in general in the way of living, that makes it difficult even to get to know each other, even to see them talk. So, and this is an approach that mainly also I see the students do. Um, Even those who wants to live here after graduation, sometimes they go back to their country and bring someone from there. Okay, so and yesterday through the Q&A sessions, we talked about questions and we reviewed almost, I guess, 16 questions among the 30 questions that I had in the file, and you might have the file already. So, how to manage a proposal session? So it's about the scheduling a time and that works for both sides, and also where they can meet. Like for example, in the house of um, the female side, or the house of the male side, or even meet for the first time in the coffee shop or restaurant or somewhere else, and then they can go forth and back in each other's houses and to get to know each other better. So, but it depends on the people preference. Some people uh, prefer to see each other like for the first time in their houses or in the coffee shop for the first time. Um, and also schedule a time that works for both sides, and also get involved some other people like families, like mainly parents, or for some cases siblings, into the first session. Um, yeah, so and how to evaluate him or her based on the question. So, and I guess I answered the question yesterday about this um, issue, which it depends on the question that you ask. So I just try to in that place, I just try to have more questions, and those questions that covers everything, like all the aspects that you need to know about the person, and try to create an image in your mind of that person. So how to evaluate, it all depends on the question that you have, and also the question that come up after you asking this first question. Those questions that I had in the file, it's just the for the first, like the first layer of that topic or that quality that you are trying to investigate. When you get the answer, you should create your own questions again to get into deeply get into that quality or whatever that you are seeking. So, and this is the way that you can evaluate the personality of that person. And how to prepare a list of questions, you have the already have the questions, and we're gonna talk about the rest of the list inshallah today. um, and there are some what I call it silly questions that you should avoid. I think those silly questions, for example, you don't want, like in the first session or in the second or even in total, you don't want to ask the person that, for example, what are the five pillars of Islam in proposal. So by default, you expect that the person knows the five pillars of Islam, but that five pillars of Islam is good to know, but it doesn't, have to do with the way that you want to live with that person. I mean, like the behavior or, the temper or some other stuff. So you know that with uh, to whom you are going to talk, you already, through the matchmaking and the information that you gather already before sitting on a chair and talk with that person, that with whom you are talking. You are not just choosing someone from the street and put it on the chair and just start talking with him or her. So you already have like that type of information, and you know that from which environment that you select that person and start initiate the conversation. So asking about those like very basic type of information or beliefs uh, doesn't work for you, and for like it doesn't give you like any benefit for having a lasting marriage. Or like a question that how do you want to die? That's not appropriate question asking someone that, like in a proposal session, that how do you want to die. So we're gonna die, we don't know how we die, so let's let it to Allah, that He decides for us that how are going to die. Or for example, asking the person that what do you think of the verses of that verse of Quran that says الرجال قوامون على النساء. There might be a kind of intention behind that question, that like who's in charge, who's in power in that relationship by bringing up such verse of a Quran without having a proper interpretation of that verse. So I think those are is type of inappropriate question that you can ask, and you just totally ruin the process, and you couldn't imagine that process like continues after that. So, and the type of image that you create in the another side's mind might not be a good image. So just careful and watchful of the questions that you ask, and prepare your question before you go to the session and initiate the conversation. Um, and um, and you try to have your answers ready for all those questions that you have. You are going to ask some questions, but you need to have your own answers too. So be prepared for that. That person might ask same questions to you, and you need to know what you want and your answers are, what your answers are. Uh, and also conditions and a marriage contract. It's a very kind of contradictory issues specifically in some countries like Iran, um, that in the marriage contract, like in Islamic marriage contract, I'm not talking about the the marriage license and the contract that you have in the United States or Canada. Uh, but in like in an Islamic marriage contract, the right for divorce is by default is for the man. So it's a man who decides to divorce his wife or not. But the man can convey or transfer that right to woman. So it doesn't mean that the Arabic word for that transition is a tafwiz. It doesn't mean that you give that right to another person. You are just transferring that right because that right is by default as given to men by Allah. And you just can transfer that right to women. In the marriage contract, you can mention that I transfer that right to my wife. And it means that whenever that your wife wants, can get divorced. And then you have to pay back the mehriya or like whatever that you include in the marriage contract. So, and also there are some other issues in that I don't want to get into that because it's has to do with law and it's not in my expertise. But there are lots of cases just came to me and some and also some other counselors and would say, so we are talking with someone and we are okay now totally with the all the process and we are going ahead and to get married, but there are some conditions like the girl's family wants to have the right of divorce in the marriage contract to be transferred to their daughter. So what should I do? So I would say no, don't do that. Or because if you do that, so you should be not be like Islamically to pay the, for example, the nafaqa. So if you change something here, you have to change to some other parts of the contract too. So what we have in the marriage contract, like in Islamic marriage contract, which are arranged by the verses of Quran and the orders of the Allah's orders. So we couldn't change it. If we change it, we need to change some other parts too. And finally, we just make a mess of lots of conditions and like secondary terms of like the contracts or which is we cannot to collect them back and to in order to have a lasting marriage. And if we want to talk about like some issues, it it shows that we are ahead of time. We are thinking about, for example, divorce, which is not kind of appropriate. You are getting married. For example, if you give birth, are you thinking about the death of like that, like little baby at the time? No, you are not thinking about the death of that little one. So because you are right now is happy about the birth of that baby. And marriage is the same. So you are happy about the marriage, this relationship that is established. Like thinking about divorce might not be appropriate at that time, and trying to take some steps to ensure that you get the like as much as benefit as you want if you get divorced. It's good to take some steps to establish a lasting marriage, but thinking about divorce in the first step, like in the beginning of marriage, and try to take that steps that might like ruin that relationship, that marriage, might not be appropriate. um, okay, in expectation regulation, how to regulate our expectation of marriage when we cannot find a perfect match. So it's a good question that I received sometime like from some people that if you, for example, if you cannot find a good match for yourself, probably there is something wrong with the or like with the expectation that you might have of the marriage and the person that you are just trying to get to know. it's better to be enough flexible and revise some of your expectations in order to find a good match. And the younger you are, you better can revise those expectations. And you get the older you get older, it's kind of get more difficult to be flexible or change some of the expectations that you have. So you just have it in your mind that probably being flexible and revising some of their expectations can open more doors, and also provide you with more options that you can find a better match uh, for yourself. And also how much of our expectation should be met in order to make the final decision. I would say 70% is an ideal, is a really perfect match. Like even 70%, you cannot find it 100%, but 70% or 60%, between something between 60 or 70 is very ideal rate for meeting your expectations. For the rest, it's a compromise. It's just look over the whatever that you see and change your expectations, and being forgiveness toward your spouse. So, and then like it's a thing that we need to talk about like in depth with like each cases, and to see how you can get along with your wife after getting married. And you see every one of us has like our own um, mistakes, or just on things that might not be good for um, uh, in the eyes of our spouse. But we need to through the compromise or looking over the mistakes and forgiveness, just pass over and go ahead. Um, and also through the engagement, um, how long should the engagement take? The process of proposal, I would say at least 3 months. But for the engagement, it also depends on the situation of both sides, specifically for the man who's supposed to Islamically taking care of the family, and it depends on the job or like the where they are supposing to live, and like some other issues, like specifically financial aspect of that man, so that they can financially support the family. Uh, so, but it probably is better to do not take more than 1 year or 2 years, like 1 year and a half or 2 years. Inshallah, with the support of the family, they should, after this, couple of after this, like 1 year or 1 year and a half or 2 years, they can just go together and live in their house, and can take care of each other. So, or at least be with each other. So even like some for some cases, the couple decide to live with one of their own families. That's okay, but not longer than 1 or 2 years. If they can tolerate the situation, because when they live with their families, there are like the one of the parents, or the both parents might intervene in some cases. If there is a conflict, and one of the parents might get involved in that conflict, and it get it worse, and it might like get that situation worse. So it's better to live separately. In one of the questions that I had in that list is that, for example, if I can have it here, uh, do you have the list, Sister Sarah?
Yes, I do.
Okay. For example, one of the questions here, if there is anyone from the family is going to live with us.
It's question 25.
Yes. Will anyone in your family be living with us in the future? That's a really important question. if you expect that one of your parents might be kind of coming to live with you in the future with your family, you need to, talk with your wife or your husband seriously about this, and take some like serious steps toward that to see that how that can affect your family and your marriage dynamic. So you need to very careful of that. And what is right and what is wrong during engagement? Um, this is also kind of, this one also depends on the couple. But if during the engagement, which for some cases might be a temporary marriage, like a temporary nikah, it's not like permanent nikah here, because they want to be non-mahram during that time, and while they are talking to each other when they go out in a restaurant, or even they have like a travel somewhere, they want to be mahram with each other, they do a temporary nikah. um, and it's a process for them to get to know each other deeply and better. So what I recommend for some cases, it depends the cases. I would say specifically, if they can, do not sexually involve. So they can do some other, like sorry that I'm kind of clear about these issues, because it's a very important issue in the marriage. Like they might like have some kisses, but in terms of the sexual engagement or sexual relationship, I would say try to be kind of if they can keep the taqwa, and do not be involved in that type of relationship until they can make their final decision and would say, okay, so we are ready to go for the um permanent marriage, and go where that we want to live, and and do the final decision on whatever that they want to do for their marriage. So, but it depends on the cases. So, but for some cases it might not be a case, and they don't care about that, or they are already sure that this temporary nikah is going to be a permanent nikah. So they would say that this is not the case for us. It totally depends on the case and the couple and what they think. But this is a recommendation that I highly give to those who might not be sure yet that this temporary one is going to be a permanent. So just watchful of that too. Uh, that inshallah it's not going to be a big case, because it has like, if they get involved sexually, there are some law issues involved too regarding the marriage, like Islamic law regarding the marriage. So regarding the mehriyas or whatever, like all those gifts that you know both sides gave to each other, and specifically for the mehriya, or if um, like the woman get pregnant through that relationship, it's a really, and they're not sure yet that the marriage is going to be a permanent, is going to be a really big deal for both of them. And other issues here is traveling suggested for knowing each other, and how traveling is good as far as I said in the last slide, they're not getting involved emotionally and physically a lot. Or if they are going traveling with their families, that would be okay, I think, if they can support. And yes, traveling is a good thing that they can do to get to know each other better, because we really know the person, like our travel mate, in different situations, which really provide a good situation for us to get to know that person too. How to recognize the real self of person, through that questions, and also like regarding mental health and physical status and stuff like that, you can ask about that physical illnesses, And regarding mental issues, I would say you can go to see a psychologist and ask for an MMPI uh, test, which is a really good and reliable test, a psychological test. I have a brief description of the MMPI here. For those of you who might not be familiar with that, it's a Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory. It's a psychological test that assesses personality traits and psychopathology. It is primarily intended to test people who are suspected of having mental illness or mental health or other clinical issues, although it was not originally designed to be administered to non-clinical population, it has found. So I think there are more than 1,000 studies on just on MMPI to evaluate that this test, and it's really, really, really reliable test. And I don't know, it might be kind of expensive in the United States of Canada to have that test because it takes time for the short version of this test that there are more than 300 questions with just yes or no, and for the long version of it, the test is, I guess, more than 500 questions, and it tries to to identify different aspects of the person, like depression and anxiety, schizophrenic, or some, I guess it's around like a 10 aspects of the mental like issues. So any interpretation of the result is needs like a specific specialty, and you need to talk with a psychologist or whoever is expert in interpretation of MMPI, and it really helps you and gives you lots of information about the mental status of the person that you are trying to get to know. And how to validate the claims. So yesterday we talked about that. You can make a comparison between the answers that you get through that questions with the information that you gather from the people who are in the community or close to the person that you are getting to know. The parents, like close friends, or the people of the community, or there's anyone in the mosque who know that person. You can make that comparison and just spend time, not be in hurry, and just try to gather as much as information as you can to get to know that person. And also through the questions that you ask and the sub questions and those questions that you created based on the answers that you receive, you can validate all the claims, inshallah. Okay, so if we can uh, go to the scenario and have just 5 minutes, spend just 5 minutes on the scenario, since it's Sarah.
Sure. So just so we have more time for the new part, I'll just give a maybe 30-second to 1 minute reminder
Okay.
of Amir and Fatima. So you'll remember from the last couple of sessions, Amir is a PhD student living in Wisconsin. One of the reasons he's interested in marriage is that he's hoping it'll fill a certain void of loneliness that he's experiencing. His background is Lebanese, but he's open to somebody who's a convert or a Muslim born and raised in the United States. And we learned a little bit last week about his sense of religiosity and a little bit about his family as well. And politically, we learned that he's critical of U.S. foreign policy and he's considering leaving the U.S. after graduation. For Fatima, she's a 23-year-old Pakistani American who is born and raised in Houston, Texas. We know she's getting her master's in economics, and that she's hoping that marriage will give her a sense of independence that she has wanted. In terms of her religiosity, we learned she's very particular about prayers and hijab. We learned also about her family. She comes from a mixed cultural background, and that she's also against foreign policy in the US, but proud of democracy and freedom of speech. Thank you, Dr. Kianpour. We have the new scenario. I can read through it very quickly. So through a community he has been connected to recently, Amir is introduced to Fatima in order to talk and see if they are a match enough for marriage. The matchmaker has tried her best to carefully consider their priorities and expectations and then introduce them together. Fatima is a little bit uncertain because of a few gaps she sees, but has been encouraged by her mother to talk with Amir. He is also very excited and nervous because this is the first time he wants to talk with someone in the US regarding marriage. He told the matchmaker that although he is very critical of the US politics and may not be interested in Western culture, he is open to talk with those who know this culture better than him and does not want to lose any chances. They set a time to talk via Skype. What are the main 5 areas of focus? What questions do you think they can ask to know each other deeply?
Okay, so if you can, any of you that you think, you think of that main 5 areas of focus, just have it in the chat box, and also identify those questions that you think they can ask each other to get to know each other deeply, based on the knowledge or whatever that you know about the Amir's personalities and Fatima's personality. And if you have any questions regarding the scenario, you can just include it to the chat box too.
They gave us one example to get people started. If anybody is feeling shy about typing anything in the chat box or speaking, you're also welcome to send me a private message and I can put it into the chat box for you.
Okay, so um, I just have it here. Okay, they should learn about the other's expectation of where they will live in the future and the role the ethnic culture plays in their lifestyle. Exactly, specifically where they are going to live. It's one of the main areas of focus that they need to seriously talk about it. And also ethnic culture plays in their life. It's not like the ethnic cultures that they have, like a Lebanese culture and also the American, like a mix of Pakistani American type of culture that they need to talk. What is your perspective on religion? Um, so they can talk about the religion. Yeah, exactly. Specifically, their beliefs regarding, because Fatima is the one who's kind of talk about the those controversial issues such as like feminism and Islam, and the fact that women through the history have been oppressed by men, and you know the kind of power dynamics between men and women, and in Islam, the type of the culture that exists in Islamic countries and Islamic culture too. They need to seriously talk about that too. Yes. And what would be religious perspective? Yeah, I guess I um, talk about it. It's the same question as the last one. And what are your expectation of marriage? So yeah, expectation of marriage, because we know that we know the real motivation of Amir is the main probably the main reason is to not be alone and try to focus on his study, and also avoid like all those depressive episodes that he might be experiencing. Um, and also Fatima's might not have that experiences that Amir has, like regarding loneliness and stuff like that. But like her own like motivation for marriage, they need to get to know all those expectations and motivations that they have about the marriage. Yes. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, because we are already hit 8, and so we don't have enough time. I would say we can end this session, inshallah, and we're gonna have our last session next week. For the questions here, just a reminder that I yesterday I went through the questions to question number 16. Inshallah, in the Q&A sessions next week on Saturday, I will take care of the rest of the list, and then you can have more questions then, inshallah.
So thank you so much for sharing all this valuable information. Inshallah, everyone will be able to attend our final session on Sunday of next week, as well as the Q&A on Saturday. And I do want to encourage you to spend some time with these questions. They really are very valuable. And also, I would encourage you to ask your friends or family members who are married if they also have additions to this list. Inshallah, you can continue to build out a good, strong list of questions to help you consider how to move forward in marriage. So with that, inshallah, we will send out the link for this recording via the chat group. And if you have any questions or feedback in the meantime, please email the organizers or use the chat group, and inshallah, we'll do our best to accommodate. Thank you so much, and inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.